Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Julian Padilla. I have been doing Roblox models and just modeling for a long time now, way too long to the point where I can remember, because that makes sense. I'm going to show you basically my entire process of start to finish of how I make a dinosaur. And generally, I'm going to go over, some basic things about the keybinds you want to do, understanding what you're actually trying to make when it comes to form and figure, and then basically just a time lapse showing my process because I feel a lot of people generally get the idea on how to go about making these things, but when it comes to generally optimizing the performance and thinking and getting into the right workflow, I feel like this is a necessary tutorial. Also, just because I'm going to be leaving the Roblox scene and I want to share with you my entire process, start to finish, and how I make this. So this is probably going to be a part series, probably 2 or 3 parts. I'm going to show the modeling process today. I had a video going through the basics of dinosaur anatomy and understanding the different families and what's the different features that they all exhibit. 4 legs, 2 legs, 4 toes, 5 toes, 3 toes, teeth, sharp or not, and all that stuff, but I don't think that's going to be necessary. The only things I ask of you going into this tutorial before you start doing anything is that you understand one, basic concepts of Blender. How do you move the camera? How do you generally add a part, extrude a part, and stuff like that. I'm going to have keybinds in the bottom left corner over here that you could see me click and do stuff with my mouse generally. I'm going to list all the keybinds that I use in the description of this video, and I'm going to, if I think of something that I think is noteworthy, I'm going to take a pause and explain my process of how I'm doing things. But generally, this is going to be a watch and learn type of thing. I think the best type of experience is seeing it through itself. So I hope on streaming this entire model. If not, I'll skip over some parts that are more redundant, but I'm basically going to take it slow. We're going to start with understanding shapes, getting references, and extruding parts. What's good in terms of the topology you have, what is topology, and stuff like that. And so I'll hope to get into that. Basically, what I'm going to be going through here is I'm going to be modeling Plateosaurus. And the references you want to look, so let's say you have a dinosaur in mind or a prehistoric animal of that sorts. We're going to open our browser, and the only thing you need to do is look up the animal you want and a skeletal diagram. The reason I say a skeletal diagram and not just, looking up the animals, because you're going to get all sorts of different references from all sorts of different ages and stuff like that. And generally, if you look up a animal's skeletal, it'll help you map different things like where the muscles are, where things are going to be articulating, and that plays a huge, huge role in the process of making your animal feel more alive and giving it that sort of texture and making it feel less flat. And also it'll help in the very end when you animate something and the rig feels really good to work with. Believe me, it feels really, really nice to have a rig that moves in the ways that it should. It's very difficult if you have an animal rig in places they don't want to be. When you start off getting your reference, I have this one here. I am not going to use this one simply because I found a better one. And understanding what's good and what's not is kind of subjective, but generally things that are newer, this was a skeletal diagram published in 2024, are going to be better because our understanding and comparative anatomy is a lot better with the going years than the previous. If all else fails, I recommend looking up skeletaldrawing.com. Dr. Scott Hartman does a bunch of very good skeletal diagrams. Generally, we like keeping the anatomy of the animals accurate to what they entail. And so if that's the case, I recommend looking up your animal and going to its Wikipedia page and just reading a little bit about what this animal is, who it's related to. You could see on the side here the classification. So Plateosaurus is in the family Plateosauridae. We could see here that Plateosaurus, the 2 species of it, is related to Issy and Unesaurus and Macrocolum. And so if we ever need any other references, we can always go to these other guys, read a bit about them. Even better if you understand how to read scientific literature, go down to the references and click on them. And hopefully if they're not blocked, you can get a very good insight about, what these animals are. This one's not blocked. Perfect. So here's, what's this guy? Macrocolumn. Yeah, if we ever need to learn about Plateosaurus's, distant relative. All right, enough about dinosaur stuff. You want to know how to model, so let's get into it. The Blender version I'm using here is Blender 4.5, although I used to use 3.6 a lot. The only reason I switched to 4.5 is because there's a lot of technical features that I like doing for other animation projects. The process I'm going to go through is going to work for pretty much every Blender version. The only thing that's going to be different is some location of certain things, mainly just auto smoothing and understanding, getting to different lighting properties and stuff. That's fun to view. But all the keybinds are generally going to be the same, and if not, then I'll say otherwise. So the first thing we're going to do is open up a new base plate, or not base plate, this isn't Roblox Studio, silly me. Open up a new general Blender file, you'll get something like this. I'm going to do the age-old tradition of deleting it by clicking A and then X, and hopefully you should know those keybinds already. Even though I just deleted the cube, I'm going to add another one. And I'll scale it down a little bit because these little Blender boxes are about 1 meter. So, I'll scale it down a little bit. And another thing is really good is understanding if you have a number pad, 1, 3, and 7 are going to be your front, side, and top views. And if you hold Shift and click those, you'll get to back, bottom, and underside. I think I got that. Whatever. I'm going to click the side, which is number pad 3, or the direct x-axis up here. You can see that. And I'm going to add an image reference, and hopefully you save that skeletal diagram. I forgot to mention that earlier. So I have it in this file. I'm going to insert it, and boom, there we go. For preference, I'm going to flip this around by going in this setting over here and just, rotating it, 270 degrees. And now we have our reference. There is a meter stick right here. So I'm just going to relatively try to line this up and think of, okay, what's a reference of a meter? We could see these two lines right here, and that's pretty good. And I'm going to put the bottom of this guy's feet generally at the bottom of where the space or this viewport is, and I'll go ahead and move this backwards. And so there we go. Now we have our references. Now we have our reference in here, and you could always port more references, especially if a diagram has more than one view. You could always just take this, copy it by clicking Shift or by doing Shift D to duplicate it in place, and then I can click R to rotate, and then I could do an axis, X, Y, or Z. I'm going to do X, and then rotate it. Nope, that's the wrong one. Sorry. It's going to be Z, and rotate it 90 degrees. And then this is really good if you have different angles. When it comes to starting it, the first thing that we want to do, and we're going to do this every single time we do a major part of the body, whether it's the head, the jaw, the neck, body, tail, the arms, and the legs, all of this is going to start off the same way. We're going to click our cube that we inserted. We're going to click modifiers, add modifier, generate, and then mirror. And so what this is going to do is that anything we do on one side, if we go into like the modeling tab, it's going to do to the other side. However, we want perfect symmetry, so what we're going to do, we're going to go over here, we're going to get the loop cut tool. I'm going to cut it down the center, and then I'm going to go to my select box, and then up here I'm going to go in the different select modes, and I'm going to click face. This will make it so we select only faces. And then over here on the top right, there's a box called toggle X-ray. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and so now we can see through our little cube mesh. I'm going to highlight half of it, click X, and then delete just the faces. And so now, because this is mirroring on the X-axis already, we don't want to have duplicates. If I were to leave these over here, it's going to double the topology on this side, and that's not good. So we always bisect it, and then what we do, we enable over here this little checkbox clipping. And that'll, if we go back to vertices select, that'll make it so anything we grab in the center is going to stay in the center, as opposed to if we have it unchecked, it's going to tear, and we do not want that. So now that we have that, I'm going to go to my side view, and I'm going to take the origin point, which is this little orange dot here. This is where the cube rotates and moves along. I'm going to go back here and try to find the back of the skull where it generally rotates. And I'm going to put this, if I toggle X-ray might be better. Exactly. Generally where the skull connects, so about right there. And then I'll align the cube and size it correctly that I need. I don't know why. Oh no, it is showing down here. That was confusing. So this is the general size we're going to go height-wise. And now the fun begins when it comes to making this. So now I'm going to switch over to the modeling tab. I'll go to our side view. And now I'm going to take face select mode, and I'm going to take this face, and I'm going to extrude it following the silhouette of this skeleton. And somebody, especially if you're not into modeling dinosaurs, you may wonder certain things like, why are these legs so skinny? Or why is this neck really thin, and why does it do that? Or how does this connect? Is that a part of the neck or the jaw? These are all things that you can find answers with understanding general dinosaur anatomy. So the black silhouette you see here is going to be the muscle and the skin that's going to follow the skeleton. And even though it may look wrong, I can guarantee you whatever you're thinking is wrong. Dinosaurs are not thick, and we'll especially get to that in the front view. So for this, I'm going to generally extrude along, and I'll rotate by clicking S and R to rotate in size. So I'll go E to extrude, R to rotate, and S to size, and then G to grab. And we don't want to flood this too much. We don't need to get the exact shape. That will come later. And then the skull ends right about here. This is about where the neck starts, so we'll leave a little bit of that for the neck. And then to kind of taper this downwards. And then I'll go ahead and go back to vertex select mode. And then I'll highlight this. I don't want to select because these are two vertices right here. And I'll kind of just tweak this a little bit. I want to move this down a little bit more to follow the skull. Follow that down, move this up, because it's right here in the line. And then that's more the jaw area here, so I'll need to take this back up. And there we go. We have a basic shape. If I turn off X-ray mode, and we go to the front, we're like, wow, that doesn't look anything noticeable at all. And so we'll go back into modeling tab, and this is where we'll do edge select mode. And we're going to go ahead and go to the front and take this edge and go to the move, and then we'll rotate, or we'll move these inward depending on the width of our animal. Now, silly me didn't do my research and looked up how wide this skull is, so let me do that real quick. I found the reference I want, so now I'm just going to add it. And this is what I was talking about by the multiple views thing. This really, really helps when it comes to going to the side and then the top. And so now I'll match this up. And there we go. Now this is starting to look somewhat like an animal in terms of its general shape. And another thing that I'm going to mention again is that if you think it looks wrong, you're probably wrong in thinking that, because I can guarantee you it's probably right, and it just looks weird. So after fixing this little thing right here and this one right here, perfect. Now we're going to go ahead and do one of the most important steps, which is subdivide this and give it a general shape. And so I'm going to go into the modeling tab. I'll turn off this X-ray because I don't need it right now. I'm going to go to the loop cut tool on the side in the toolbar. I'll go ahead and divide this down the middle. I'll do it once again and then I'll do it on the top. So now we should have a shape kind of like this, and this is mirrored on the other side again. And so now what I'm going to do is refine this shape, and what I like to do here is I go into the sculpt mode tool, and I kind of just hold shift and click, and that'll just smooth things out. And if I just do that, it'll smooth over like that. I can also just click and that'll be a little bit. I'm going to only smooth over the top right now because there's a lip line and I don't want to mess up that lip line. So I'm going to just smooth this and then refine the shape by clicking on the side and then going to elastic grab and then reshaping whatever just got missing or whatever just got messed up over here. And generally this doesn't mess up the width, but it looks like it might have. And so here's where a really important step when it comes to understanding what animal you're working with. Plateosaurus is going to have some brows. Most dinosaurs generally do. So on the top here where the eyes are going to be, this is your lacrimal bone, this is your frontal, and then your postorbital. These are going to kind of jut out a little bit, and you could kind of see that on the top of view I have up here. This is the lacrimal right here. This is the nasal right here, and then the frontal. These lacrimals kind of jut out just a little bit, and this is going to form kind of a brow. This down here, I believe, is the dentary. This kind of curves in like this. And so I'm going to kind of just match that shape up generally. Something like that is going to be good. And so now, wow, this is starting to, be a shape, and it's going to take some time to modify it to the shape you want. And I very, very highly recommend using references. References are very good. And so now, to make this shape a little less flat, I'm going to take a look at where our antorbital fenestra is, which is this little hole right here you see in the dinosaurs. And I'm going to give it a little bit of shape. So I'm going to kind of just increase my brush size, and then I'll kind of just bring this in a little bit. I'll maybe taper the top just a little bit more. I'll maybe jut this out just a little bit where the lip is to kind of give it a less boxy feel. And then I'm going to do the same for the infratemporal fenestrae. The infratemporal, where kind of the ear would be attached to, but not really, and kind of just scoot this in a little bit. And then where the eye is, I'm going to make a kind of a socket. So this hole right here, the orbit, we'll kind of just think of where the eye is. And this is Plateosaurus is going to be facing sideways because it's an herbivore, generally. Herbivores do that. So I'm kind of just going to make a little dent in here with the elastic grab tool. And it's going to kind of want, the orbit hole is going to want to be horizontal. And so I think that's about good. And then if you really want to see the shape that you have, this is where the smoothing and the shading comes in part. In the layout, we're going to go click our object, and we're going to click right click and click auto smooth. And then over here it adds a modifier. I'm going to set the angle to 45. And this is where you kind of start getting that shape that my models have, and we'll define some features once we start cleaning up the skull a little bit. And so now I'm just going to and so now this is starting to look pretty solid. And so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make the socket, or not the socket, the mouth general shape. And the mouth is going to be a very detailed part, which I'll kind of have to dedicate its own time to. So what we're going to do, we're going to click K in the modeling tab with our, this is the knife tool, which I believe you could find right here. I'm going to go to the vertex. Oh, why is it not working? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, why can't I get it? Oh, it's because I have it selected. Yeah, I like using K a lot more because there's more control. And I'll kind of just add a little bit more topology. So I'll kind of just start here towards this, that. And I'll kind of just hold shift, and this will automatically cut in the middle. And what you're doing right now is adding more topology. And topology is the general map of your model. If you think of this like a grid, you're just forming a grid over your model. And topology really likes having quads or triangles. So we don't want any shapes. If I were to click enter to finalize that knife, we don't want any shapes that are going to have 5 sides. We want 4 or we want 3. And so in order to, and this comes with practice, in order to fix something like this, and run it through the entire back of the skull, I could easily just do the triangle method of splitting it up like this. And so now we go from one shape and having 5 sides to splitting up into 3. This is kind of a bad example though, right here. I only say that because I'm going to continue this on, and it conveniently aligns up with this. Although I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put that over here, and this still is a 4-sided shape. Now I'm going to go to Face Select. I'm going to go ahead and shift click these. Another way I can do this is if I were to click C, this is this highlighter tool that you can scroll, and see highlights if you just click, and then you could hold shift to unhighlight, and then you right click to get out of it. I'm going to not do that. I'm just going to do this again. Once we have that highlighted, this is going to move the faces connected to. That's why I'm not selecting these outsides, because then that's going to really give this a hard shape, and I don't want that. And so I'm going to go to our side. I'm going to turn on X-ray mode, and I'm going to just kind of click G to move this inward, and then I'll size it down just a little bit. And I don't like that I grabbed that, so I'm going to not select that one. And I'll try that again. Kind of just move that inside, and you don't want, generally the mouth, the inside of the mouth isn't going to go past this kind of tooth socket line. It's going to go in a little bit because it caves. And so I'm not going to try to go past that. So I'll just go a little bit above. And I'll turn off X-ray. And yeah, that looks about right. Another thing you could do, I'll just Ctrl Z so I could select this, is go down here to the smooth and flatten angles. I'll just pull this out a little bit. And what that'll do is smooth the vertices between. And so I'm just going to do that a little bit. And I'll maybe do it right here too. There we go. This is really good if you have really rough shapes that you want to try to fix. Like if I were to try to smooth this out right here. Yeah, look at that. Beautiful. But we're not, because that's a feature of it. And cool. Now this is starting to look like a mouth. I'll move these up a little bit back here. And there's a sharp line here that we'll fix later. But yeah, this is starting to look like a head shape. So now what we're going to do is focus on the orifices, which is the eyes, the nose, and the ears. Although the ears I may or may not do depending on what goes on. But this is where the topology starts getting really interesting. And so I'm going to go to my X-ray mode. And this is the sclerotic ring of a dinosaur. Some skeletals have these, some do not. And what is going to happen is the eye is going to fit on this inside ring. And this is going to basically be like the border of the whites of your eyes. So I'm going to click our knife tool with K, kind of just outline this. And I'm not going to be too worried about trying to hook these onto the center. I'm just going to kind of click where it kind of feels the shape is, or I'm just going to kind of feel the shape and go around where it should be. And I'll go ahead and click enter. And oh no, now we have these more than 5-sided polygons, and we're going to try to fix it up. So I'll go ahead, go to vertex mode, and again, this comes with practice, and I'm not even good at it myself. I'm just going to try to clean all of this up. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and delete this inside with just the faces. If I were to click vertices, by the way, it does that. It gets rid of all of everything. That's why I'm only clicking faces. Go to vertex select, and then I'll start cleaning this up. So I'm just going to try to figure out a general shape. Maybe. If anything, I could clean it up later. These two are close. I'm going to go ahead and highlight these. Click M to merge these at their center. Same with these. They're not really necessary. The shape's not that important, because this is just an outline. Gonna fix this up a little bit. And then there's our little eye. Wonderful. It's horrifying. Now let's take a good look at this from the front. And okay, that looks pretty good. Side is good, we already did that. And the top, that's good. Sometimes you'll be able to see it. And I also realize this isn't wide enough, so I'll go ahead and fix all this in Sculpt Tool with the elastic grab. I'll kind of just grab this side and jut it out and see if that works. Wonderful. Incredible. And this isn't going to be perfect because the way this skull's oriented downwards, it's not going to match with this perfectly sideways skull anyway. Go ahead, recheck. And ooh, that guy's rough. But it's okay. And this is going to highly depend on your animal. Remember, dinosaurs do not always face forwards, and this is a very bad thing to get in your mind. This is an herbivore. Its eyes are going to be on the side, generally. And please fit the orbit where it would naturally be. So like for Plateosaurus, this looks pretty natural. This is pretty good. Vertical orbit. Maybe fix the top up here a little bit. And boom. Now I'm going to go ahead and highlight all this. I'll go ahead and just click F to fill. And this part doesn't matter. This is a very much more than four-sided shape. And so now I'm going to click I to inset. I'll do it just a little bit there. And I'll click G to move it back just a little bit. I'll inset it again. A little bit more. And then one more time. And then I'll just size that down. Kind of round it off. I'm going to hold Alt and click to select this ring. And you could do this for generally any path, shape, line. What do you want to do? I'll click Alt, click that one and size that up just a little bit. And same with that. So wow, now we have an eye socket. And we'll put an eye in there later and we'll figure out, you know, giving it that shape, that's good. Now I'm basically going to do the same thing for the nose, and because we don't need this anymore. Nobody's going to see the back of this eye, so we're going to save that. I'll do the nose now, and this nose is pretty long. And if you look at some references as to how lizard skulls and crocodile skulls go in relation to their nostril, they're pretty small. The nose isn't going to be this massive hole. Generally what I like to do is go to the front and do kind of a slit. I'll do something like, I'm going to make up this shape, but I have references in my mind. You could just look up Komodo dragons and stuff. Oops. Smooth. I'll size this down a little bit smaller, and here I'm just going to launch it in the back. There we go. That's a little too far that way. And so that way this nose looks like it's going into the actual skull, and this will just help when it comes to giving that little extra bit of depth. I'm going to go ahead and add a mesh called an icosphere as a placeholder for where the eyes would be. I'll go ahead and just normal right-click shade smooth this. I'll put these where the eyes would be. And this, I'm not going to follow my skull just yet. I'm going to make sure this lines up with the inside of the orbit on the skeletal. And then I'll go ahead and align it here, oops, on the x-axis. Okay, that is definitely an eye. And this is the fun part, because now I have this added in. I'll go ahead and add a modifier, mirror, and then I'll set the mirror object to this skull. So now it goes around the skull. And now I'm going to kind of just fix this up a little bit, because this should be wrapping around. The eye shouldn't be jutting out. And now I get to fix where the kind of eyelid would be. Kind of do something like that. And beautiful. It's not jutting out as much anymore. It's okay if it does. It was just way too much at that point. And there we go. Wow, this is starting to look somewhat decent now. What a funny guy. I'll go ahead and add some more shape. And a big thing I'm going to do is just keep cycling through modeling and sculpting and just tuning shapes a little bit more. I think now what I'm going to do is show you how to make certain features. So I'd like to give this guy some eyelids. I'll maybe make this shape a little more apparent. I'll add a little nostril flap. Kind of give maybe some depth back here to its post-orbital. And so this is where the knife tool comes in handy. I think first, before I do that, I'm going to Alt-select this, and then I'll do the Bevel tool, or Ctrl B. And I'll kind of just ease that a little bit. This adds, or this makes it so the edges aren't so sharp. I'll do that for that. Yeah. I think I might. So back to what I was originally saying. After fixing that, because it's bugging me, I'll go ahead and let's say I want to add a little flap to the nostril, kind of give it that little skin wrinkle that it has. So I'll come out a little bit, maybe right here, and I'll kind of trace this along the outside like that, and then I'm going to pinch it off, kind of do one of these, and I'm going to follow the topology on this side. I'll maybe make it do something like that, loop around. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Edge Select, and I'll push the, actually I think I can just grab this one, push this out just a little bit. Actually it's going to be U and U. Push this out, and then I'll select this edge, this one, and this one. Right click and do Mark Sharp. And this will add some fun details, and you could do so much with these different things. It adds so much character, and just really makes it feel like it's not a static object. And I'm going to kind of just do this generally around different features. I might make this guy have more of a rugged nose. I don't know what a comparison would be, but I guess some birds. There we go. He's going to look tired. And then for the post orbital back here, I think what I'm going to do is just take my knife tool. And wow, this is starting to have shape. Would you look at that? Shading's a little messed up, and that's because of the weird topology. And I don't know if I could fix any of this. That side's pretty okay. This is a little weird. I think I'm going to align this a little better. Yeah. I mean, it's starting to look like an animal. I'll make this pop just a little bit more because this is going to be a little bit more circular. Rounded features. Yeah. And wow. That's looking like an animal. Oh! One thing I forgot to do, and this is going to help a lot with visualizing things, is the lighting that I always do. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to the lighting settings up here. I'm going to drop down the shading. I'm going to go to Shade Flat. And then I'm going to go ahead and enable this setting called Cavity. And that's going to give you so much more information about how your topology is working and how your model is going to be working. And it seems like the topology is not that good. But it's okay because when you import this to Roblox and you add textures onto it, it's going to look way, way better. But wow, look at that. This is starting to look like an animal. And I think I'm going to go ahead and abandon my idea up here, or at least move it back and make it not as sharp. If I can. Nope, I'm going to abandon the idea. So let me try to undo this real quick. I think I'm going to go ahead and round this just a little bit. And yep, that's starting to look like a model. Smooth this. And yeah. Lighting's a little bit weird here, but that's okay because that will change with texture, like I said. And wow, look at that. You went from a really ugly looking block to whatever animal you're making now. And if you have, if you're making a ceratopsian or anything with a crest, what I recommend is you're probably stumped right now. And so what I would do is I would probably make that separately if I were to practice that, or if I were to make a little mess around thing real quick. Alright, I made this little unicorn horn for Plateosaurus, you know, because, you know, what if it wanted one, really, and I wanted to attach it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, assuming this is a frill you're trying to make, or a crest, or whatever, for anybody who's trying to do that, I'm going to go ahead and take the faces underneath, the little quads. I'll go ahead and delete the faces. And I'll do the same over here. And basically what you want to do if you're making an animal that's frilled or something like that, you want to make the two parts, join them with Ctrl J, and then you kind of just want to play match up right here. It's going to be a little difficult. Oops. But this is how you would go about making a frill or making a crest or something like that. And obviously, you know, you're not going to make a really shitty thing like that because you're actually going to take time on it because you love what you're trying to make. And yeah, I just wanted to show that real quick because it's pretty important to know how to do that and connect things and stuff like that. What else am I missing? Oh, I missed the jaw, the little lip line. I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. There we go. This is looking beautiful. And so now when this is closed, it'll look like it, you know, actually has lips as dinosaurs do. I'll maybe adjust this up a little bit. And yeah. Given the time, and I do have classes tomorrow, I think I'm going to stop here and then continue. So boom! Boom! Good morning. It's dawn of a new day, and I'm bright and wonderful, and I think I'm going to go ahead and get started on the jaw. But I think before I'm going to do that, I'm going to show you how to color things real quick. You go down to this material tab down here in this little properties. We're going to go ahead and add new. And this is, I'm not going to pattern it right now, that comes to the very end, but I'm just going to give it a color just so we can start defining, you know, what's skin, what's eye, what's mouth. That's generally what we're going to go through. So I'll go ahead and call this default skin. And the name doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and click the shield icon just so it saves. And then I'm going to go down here to viewport display and color. And I'll kind of just, you know, we're going to get this, maybe make it a nice deep like blue like that. And then just for the sake of things, I'll go ahead and copy this hex code. Oops. And then put it in base color over here. So that way if you know, were to render anything with these, it'd stay the same color. The eyes, I'll keep them white for now. We're not going to need that. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and separate the mouth. I'll go ahead and highlight the inside. Like that. Make sure I don't have... I forgot to put this on. And then I'm going to go ahead and click P to separate. and I'll do it by the selection. And then I'll go ahead and now we have a separate mouth. And I'll make a new material. I'll call this one mouth. And then I'll set the color to, let's see. Oh, I forgot this is applied to the material. I'm going to delete this. Oh, I'm going to delete the skin one off there. In here in the material select, I'm going to pick mouth. And then I'll pick the color, which I'll go ahead and do just some like dark reddish orange purple, something like that. That works for now. And then we'll get to the mouth patterning in a second. But first I'm going to model the jaw. And so everything we learned here, making the head, is going to apply the exact same to how we make everything else. So from this point onward, I'm going to kind of just speed up the things a little bit because these processes should be relatively familiar. I'll go ahead and smooth this just a little bit. There we go. So yeah, enjoy the upcoming time lapses while we do this process again. Remember, every time you're making a new part, we're going to go ahead and bisect it using the loop cut tool. And then we're going to delete half the faces. And then we're going to go ahead and add the modifier tool. Or not the modifier, the mirror. And make sure clipping is enabled. The thing when it comes to making the jaw that I like to do, and this will help so much, is right here. This is called the quadrate, and this is the triangular. This is where the jaw articulates, along this point right here. Generally, you know, along the middle right here. So I like to put the origin of the cube right here, so that way once we make the mouth, it'll open and close naturally. But now it's time to make the mouth. I'm going to go ahead and just go to the blob tool, or maybe even just the draw tool. One of these tools, I'll go ahead and increase the area right here just a little bit, because a bunch of reptiles have this jaw joint. I forgot what it's called. Right here. I like emphasizing that. Oh yeah. Something cool to remember, you can always click something and click H to hide it, and this will help, you know, in singling out objects. If you ever want to come back, you could just hold Alt and then H to bring it back, or you could simply go up here and click Hide from Viewport. The jaw is bisected, so when I'm making this inside, it's going to be a lot deeper than hitting the roof of the skull. It generally goes down to almost the bottom. So I'm going to keep that in mind when it comes to pulling this downwards. And it tends to go down further into the throat here, because if you were to think this is the hyoid bone, the throat's going to start kind of just right here, and this is going to be the digestive tract where the trachea and the, you know, all that stuff is. This feels like a Smiling Friends character where they have like really big lips and stuff like that. Or like an old man. Now that we're pretty much done with the jaw in its general shape, we can now add the teeth. And before I do that, I want to show you something very useful when it comes to movement and rotation. So like if I were to try to rotate these, I can click R to rotate them. But if I click R and then the x-axis of which I want to rotate, it could do this really well. But something that's really cool, oh, interesting, the median point. If you select the active element, and this will help for something like joints and full head neck movements. Like if I'm looking at how the head rotates on the neck, I can select this little transform pivot to active element, and it'll be the last thing that you select. Everything will rotate. I forgot the jaw in there. Everything will rotate on the joint that the last thing was selected on. So this is really cool for different rotations like this. And then if I were to try to rotate this on the x-axis now, it's going to keep following the global x-axis, so I can change the orientation to local. And so now if I were to do that, it'll now orient or rotate on its local x-axis, and that, I think this helps a lot when understanding pivotal rotations and your models before you finalize them and stuff like that. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and make the teeth. And I just painstakingly tried getting the details of the teeth accurate. So like Plateosaurus has this pretty cool leaf-like teeth with these serrations and stuff. I went ahead and tried doing that for the teeth, and it's just going to bloat the model's overall topology, and the details are so small that you can't even see it. So we're not going to do that, and I'm going to go ahead and add a cube for the tooth. And before I do anything, I'm going to go ahead and drag it over and size it down to the general shape of the tooth. So something like that. And then for this one, and I'm only doing this... Actually, no, I'm not going to. Ignore what I said. I'm still going to divide this down the center with the loop cut tool. And then go ahead and start mirroring it. And then I'll start making the teeth as such. And I had this really cool thing up here called the proportional editor, and I'll show you what that does. Basically, how it works is when you select any vertex, it's going to drag anything in this circle right here, and you could scale this circle up with the scroll wheel whenever you click S, G, or R. It might be too big when you start out, but anything in this circle is going to drag along with it, and so that's really going to help when it comes to making these teeth, because this is too wide right now. If I were to scale it down, that's too much, so I'll go ahead and take this and kind of just scale it in a little bit more, and then I'll take this part out and I'll scale it like that. And when making the teeth, I always like to make the tooth go down a little bit more than what's illustrated in the teeth socket. And this is just because when we get to the mouth, this will help with setting your teeth in terms of how they fit inside the jaw. So what we're going to do now is, because these teeth in specific are asymmetrical at this point, and I kind of want to add a little more shape, I'm going to hold Ctrl A to apply this over the mirror modifier, or you can also just drop down and click apply. And then from this point onwards, I'm going to go ahead and take this top right here, maybe jut it out just a little bit, and I'll turn on proportional editing, select this tip, and then I think I'm just going to take this and rotate it just a little bit inwards, like that. And I'll maybe start adjusting this width a little bit because I got it a little too sharp at the end. And then this is already cut in half, so I'll go ahead and loop cut this side. And I don't think I'm going to add too much here because the teeth, there's going to be a lot of them, so we don't want to overbloat the topology. And so I'll go ahead and just smooth this down. That looks about good. And I'll go ahead and fix anything that remains. And so now when we're done with our tooth, we're going to go ahead and right click, and instead of auto smooth, we're going to just go ahead and click smooth. And this will help with the shading rather than... You can do auto smooth and define the edges, but I personally like to just smooth it like a normal person. And then now in the layout tab, we're going to go ahead and just rotate, size, and scale our tooth. I'm going to go ahead and set this transform orientations to local. And I'm just going to go ahead and hold Shift and D to duplicate, R to rotate, S to size. And I'm just going to repeat this for the entire jaw and scale accordingly. And so now what we're going to do is put these teeth in their actual positions. So what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and I'm not going to highlight all these just because I want to make sure they're... Actually, no, I am. We're going to go ahead and highlight all these and kind of just generally put them in the position that they're supposed to be, which is more along the side. The upper jaw's teeth, and this is true for pretty much almost all dinosaurs, or at least sauropods and theropods, the upper teeth are going to be more towards the edge of the lip, and the lower teeth are going to be more inside. And that's because when the jaw closes, the lower teeth are going to be behind the upper teeth, and the lips are going to kind of cover both of them. The upper jaw is going to overlap the lower jaw, and so we're going to just follow that general rule here. And once that's done, the little detail that I like to add is highlighting all these and then going to rotate and setting this transform pivot to individual origins, and then rotating this slightly along to be parallel with the jaw. And then as you get closer to the front, these teeth are going to rotate and be more facing each other. Something more like this. And then once that's done, don't worry about if it doesn't connect to the jaw right now, or the mouth and the gums. That's going to come right after this. We're just going to go ahead and highlight all these and then click a random bone or a random one that you want. I'll do the front. We'll do Ctrl J to join. We'll add a mirror modifier and we'll set the mirror object to our face. And now there we go. Now we have some teeth in place, and look at that. They fit perfectly together. I think I'm going to go ahead and edit these. And so something else this is good to know is if I want to select just this tooth very quick, I'll go ahead and click a vertex. I'll do Ctrl L, and that'll highlight all the topology that this is connected to. And then I'll go ahead and just move this individual tooth so that way it doesn't clip into each other. Beautiful. Seems like this one also clips, so I'll just go ahead and edit this. And there we go. Now we're going to do the exact same on the lower jaw, but remember the fact that the lower jaw, the teeth aren't going to be directly up against the socket. They're going to be a little bit spaced away. A way you can do this is just do the exact same, line it up, and then push it a little bit away. So I'm just going to do that. Look at that, we have teeth. And so now to confirm, and at this point edit the teeth if they don't interlock, at least if you're making a sauropod or a theropod. If you're making an ornithischian, Generally, their teeth are going to be more molar-like, and they're going to sit directly on top of each other. You see this in ceratopsians and hadrosaurs, and also in stegosaurs. And so we can go ahead and select everything on the lower jaw. We'll set our pivot to active element. Select the jaw again. And then click rotate and then X. And then, oops, that does not work. We'll set that to global. And then rotate X. And then look at how those teeth intersect. Beautiful. They don't make contact. And this is exactly how it should work. Wonderful. One of the most important things I think really brings a model to life is the mouth anatomy. And yes, it's going to be very atypical to talk about, but it adds so much more to an animal than if you were to just ignore it and keep something similar to this. So this is going to be a very complex part, but I'm mostly going to time lapse through it, but I'm just letting you know what references I'm using. I did find a muscle guide for Plateosaurus actually, showing the main jaw muscles. So this is going to be on the interior, and then there's a new muscle group a new muscle that was found called the exoporia that's kind of on the exterior. And I'm going to basically use this idea of monitor lizard mouth anatomy, which I have this good reference here. I don't follow this one too heavily because monitor lizards have their own, and just lizards in general have their own mouth complex. I'm going to kind of use crocodiles, but crocodiles are a little too plain, and that's just because of how they were adapted. I'm generally going to use a combination of this and then bird mouth anatomy. The bird mouth anatomy, we're going to have the chonae and the tracheal paths, and the glottis. I couldn't remember its name. God. I'm just going to time lapse to this part, and as I will with next parts, but I just want to bring this up because I think it really adds to a model, and you'll kind of see my process of how I make these muscles and these tissues kind of stick out. One thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to, I forgot to do this at the beginning, take both the jaw parts and just do shade smooth. And then I'm going to go on and mark sharp the features just like we did previously with the head and the jaw. I'm going ahead and making the tongue now by using a separate part because the tongue is going to be movable. And also to help me with the placement of the glottis. And there we go. We've successfully, I believe, finished the head of our animal. And look at how beautiful this musculature works. Look at how detailed that mouth is. Everything looks beautiful. Everything is amazing. Closed. It looks awesome. Double check, make sure nothing sticks out in the back or the bottom. Open up. Look at that. Look at how beautiful that musculature works when the mouth is closed and open. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now the last thing I do before I move on is I'm going to go ahead and color these teeth by giving them a new material. I'll label it teeth. And I like the white, but I'm just going to do a slight off-white into a yellow like that. Go ahead and copy the color. Set it to this base color. And then apply that over here. And then now all the methods that we learned when making the head are we're gonna apply to the body. And the thing about making the body is the neck, the body, and the tail all flow into a really good shape. So I like to model it all as one, and that'll really help when it comes to bringing out the muscles too. And so now we're just gonna apply everything we know. I ended up finding a much better reference, and thanks to a friend of mine. So I'm going to go ahead and download this and use this top view and this front view and to help the body. I also wanted to mention that when you're making the neck, it's good to overlap the head just a little bit because you're going to need some room for rotation, and it's okay if it goes into the back of the jaw. That's something that can be touched up once we start giving the body more segments and stuff like that, but I'm probably going to do something like this. But yeah. I realize the head according to this diagram here, is a lot thinner than what this diagram shows. However, there seems to be quite a bit of neck that they're reconstructing based off this vertebra. It seems like the vertebra is a lot less, and there's a lot of skin and muscle between the vertebra, and so I'm inclined to think that this might be too thick. So I think I'm gonna decrease the neck width just a little bit, and then increase the head width just a little bit. I'll do the head increase just to show you what you can do. So you can select everything in the head. Go ahead and click the main head part. Do Ctrl J to join, and then you can kind of just stretch it out a little bit. And I'm also going to do that with the jaw, but I'll do it separately for the jaw. Here, I'll select these two, and then I'll just widen it a little bit. Let me not select the body and do that. I don't know why it's selecting the body. Oh, that's probably because I have the body joined to it. So let me get that out of there. Something I really recommend doing is looking up this guy, Matt Dempsey. He's a PhD paleontologist, and he's really, really good at giving resources about muscles and anatomy, and he's got a bunch of good resources, and I think he's got a diagram that can serve as good use for about every single major dinosaur group. So as a plesiosaur, I'm going to be looking at probably this Diplodocus one and this Deinonychus one, as these two are the closest I could probably get to Plateosaurus. If you're confused on what resources to look at, all these guys, their major muscle groups are pretty much the same. It's just some very variable things. I'm mainly looking at like the latissimus dorsi right here, and the trapezius. The leg muscles and the forearm muscles will help too. But yeah, using this as a reference as to what muscles are going to be shown. They're not going to be that big. The only thing crazy that I'm going to do is pretty much exaggerate the latissimus dorsi, the trapezius, and then a few of the leg muscles and the arm muscles. And the caudal femoralis. That'll help a lot with giving this a lot more shape than what it currently has. So yeah, I think I have all the major muscles and features of the body mapped out. I have the hips coming out a little bit. I have the latissimus dorsi, the trapezius. This muscle I don't know the name of, alongside this one. And then the caudofemoralis right here. And then I have this little spine indentation that I just like adding onto the models because it makes it really feel like it's just not a sphere. Um, yeah, this thing, just in the body, you'd think it'd be a pretty tube shaped, but this, especially because these details are very slight when you import it to Roblox, is going to add so much more life into the models and stuff. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing. And I need to fix this seam here. I wanted to mention this whole joint up here and this connecting part to the head. So like I said, this is going to be where the head is going to rotate. And I'll go ahead and select this, select the head. Okay, active origin is already set. Why are you not? Whatever. Try to deselect this. But when you rotate this, it's good enough for the rotation. This part I'm going to fix a little bit. It's probably not going to go more than that. And then the bottom looked good. So what we're basically going to do is pinch off and delete the rest of it. So I'll go ahead and hide the head and its fun parts, and I'm just going to go ahead and select these faces because these didn't show up. Delete them. Then I kind of just will shove this back. So that way, come the time when, oh, there's the last one. Come the time when we need to open this jaw, there's not very much intersecting into the neck. There's going to be a little bit, but I mean, we're going to have to deal with that because if we didn't have that, then we wouldn't be able to look up and stuff like that. But yeah. Now all we have left to do is the limbs, and the limbs I do in their segments, each different parts, and yeah, I guess I'll show you that. Wow, it's day 3, and now we're going to get started on the limbs of our animal. The limbs are modeled pretty much the same way. The way I do it is I model one side at a time, so I'll insert the cube as I usually do. The most important part about this is that I get the origin of the cube in the right place because that'll help when it comes to properly orienting and translating our leg when it comes to making sure our joints are right. And I do these in parts, so I'll make the thigh, and then I'll make another cube, and then I'll make the shin, and then I'll do another one. I'll make the ankle, and then the toes. The toes I'll probably dedicate my own section to, but the leg and the arm are pretty much modeled the same way. I'm not sure if I'll do the leg and the arm and then the toes and the hands, or I'll do the entire leg and then I'll do the entire hands. I mean, it doesn't matter which order. I'm just going to do as I do, but we still do the thing of, I'm going to hide this first. Oh, I forgot to turn my thing back on. We still do the process of splitting this cube in half, deleting half the faces, and adding a mirror modifier. I don't know if I sound different compared to the other clips, but yeah, now I'm just going to go ahead and follow along and hopefully trace these joints right, and it's going to be done pretty much the same as everything else. So yeah. there's 2 points I want to bring up here. So we've basically got our leg modeled, and this is what I was talking about with the origin points at the joints, because now you can really see where and how these things will articulate in animation. So this one, this is pretty good off the bat, and I don't know if it's just because I've done this a couple dozen of times, but this is a really good joint right here in terms of the leg flexation. It can extend really well, and it can flex really well. This is really, really good. I'm actually really impressed with this. I don't know if I've gotten it this good straight off the bat. And then same with the ankle joint. I think I need to edit it a little right here. Push it up a little bit. But yeah, this, you want to always leave a little bit of overlap. If I turn on the X-ray, you'll kind of see the amount of overlap that allows the joint to be flexing and extending so naturally because of the axis parts right here. Like you see, it can go all the way up to here, and then if I can rotate it like almost entirely without it clipping out the backside. But yeah, this is very important. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, and I think you've kind of seen in my little time lapse, is I've been comparing this to this little skeletal diagram, and this is very, very wide. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do the toes after this, but legs aren't symmetrical on both sides. So once I'm done modeling the toes, I'll go ahead and unhide the model, and then that's the point where we'll slide it over. I'll go ahead and apply the mirrors, and then I'll start shaping this asymmetrically to match up with how it naturally should be. So like this muscle right here would be is up on the calf. This is basically your calf is up here, but then the other side of it is down here, and you can kind of see that in the diagram in the back here. It kind of goes down a little bit more right here, and oh, I guess it's behind the arm. You can see this red line right here, and it's really, really wide, and then the ankle's not properly jointed, and yeah, we'll get to all that stuff. So I think I'll go ahead and make the toes now. I forgot to mention, I model the biggest toe as just one big thing, and then I segment it before I duplicate the other toes. You'll see that in a second. Alright, so now I have my toe, and the different toe joints, I guess, I don't think a lot of people know this, but the inside one has 2 joints, and you can kind of see it on this diagram here. Maybe not this one, the other one. This is the outer one, I think, yeah, okay. This is the most inner claw right here. This is the dew claw. This Plateosaurus has basically 4 toes because its dew claw isn't reduced like later animals. And you can see that in the front here. This joint has 1 phalange, which is just the one joint. It's got 1. This is a metatarsal right here. The next one has 2, 1, 2, and you can see that 1, 2 right there. And then the middle one, which if we go to this foot now, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So it increases by digits the further outward we get. So this, I keep this just normal for now, but this is the part where we're gonna start kind of breaking symmetry. So I'll go ahead and just Shift D, duplicate this. I'll move this, and then I'll rotate it slightly. I'm going to have to go on global. And then this one's usually smaller. The middle, the toe is usually the biggest. So now I have to match this up again. And then I'll go ahead and duplicate this. Move this one to the outside. It's kind of generally how it is. Yeah, it looks like Plateosaurus also has its fifth toe still kind of present as like a little nub. I'll find a way to include that somehow. And then its dew claw, which is over here. Oops, I forgot to duplicate. Kind of just like that. And then now we're just going to edit these toes just a little bit. These three are probably fine, but the claw sizes are going to depend, it looks like. And then they're jointing, and we'll go ahead and segment them. I'm going to now do this foot scaling method, which I first tried on Chelantosaurus, and I think I really like. I think I should have done this before I started duplicating the toes, and therefore before you started doing anything, and now having to go back and do the same thing. But it's not that hard. It's just going to involve the knife tool. We're just going to basically take the center of this, and then extrude. Very easy. So now we get to the actual applying part where we'll go ahead and apply our mirror modifier on the main set of the legs, not so much on the toes yet. We're still going to mess with those in a second. And then we'll go ahead and move these outwards and then start editing these as they would be asymmetrically. All right, so basically, I think we're done with the leg here. We got all of our good details, and I went ahead and colored the toes black. I added a new material, called it claws, and I went ahead and segmented the toes. I left this one alone because it's not really going to be doing much, and I think I'll just add the joint on the claw here. But essentially what I did to segment the toes is I went inside and I highlighted half of it with C, and then I would click P and separate by selection. And then I took one of these loose sides, the sides that was connecting, I alt clicked it so that way I would highlight the entire like edge of it, and then I extruded it inside of the toe, and then I shrunk it down a little bit. So now we have little overlaps that kind of look like that. You can kind of see how they overlap. So that way when we bend the toes, I don't have the origin point at the right part, they won't break and split down the middle, and it won't look really ugly. That's the same segmenting method that we'll use for the body once that comes later. We will pattern this later. The oh my god, the leg later. So this is just setting up our base model. So now in order to get this to the other side, we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to select all of it. Before you do, make sure all of your joints are where you want it to be. As just an idea of how they would be bending. So like, I already went through this and saw that, yeah, this probably looks good. And then, yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this moves. Make sure that's good, because now you won't get these joint backs. I'll go ahead and highlight everything here. I'm going to go ahead, I'll just click the thigh to make sure that's the parent. I'll do Ctrl J to join everything together, so now everything is one. Oh, wait, I forgot to apply the mirror modifier on the toes, because otherwise, the mirror modifiers won't transfer to the join model, and it'll cut them in half. So let me go ahead and apply that real quick. Okay, looks like I have everything applied. Anyway, I'll go ahead and select this, join it together, and then I'll go ahead and click generate mirror, and then I'll select the mirror object to the body, and now there we go. It is mirrored, and wow, what a stance. What a stance this guy truly has. And then what I usually do for the legs, I'll go ahead and go to the top, and I'll kind of just rotate them and splay them just a little bit. There we go. I think I'll move this a little closer too. Wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular. And then I'll go ahead and apply this mirror. And then to separate everything again, I'll go ahead and go into the modeling tab where we see everything. I will highlight everything with A, I'll click P, and then I'll separate by material. And so that way that'll separate our claws and our toes. And then I'll go ahead and go back, click the legs, I'll highlight A, I'll click P, and then I'll do it by loose parts, because these are all separate objects, and so it'll automatically separate by the separate objects that we made. And then I'll go ahead and right click, and I'll just click set origin to geometry, so that way everything has their own origin and not everything's clogged up, being the joint right here. Okay, yeah, we're there. And then I'll go ahead and do the same for the claws. Before I do that, I'll go ahead and shade smooth the claws, highlight A, and then separate by loose parts. And then boom, that is our leg done. Sick, sweet, and snazzy. Hooray, give it up to day 4 of modeling this thing. Now we're going to start the arms, and we're basically going to do the exact same thing we did with the legs. And then when I get to the fingers, I'll kind of show you how I do it. I don't really follow the diagram too much because I model it sideways, kind of like the toe. If anything, honestly, I kind of cheat, and I kind of just take a toe and I just manipulate it a little bit and make it a finger. But I probably won't do that for the sake of this video because that's lazy. Oops. Okay, now we can get started. realized I forgot to turn on my screencast keys, so now you can actually see what I'm clicking. But I did forget to mention, and it's something that's kind of important for the jointing. Let me smooth this out real quick. When I was making the feet, or the legs in general, I only gave 1, 2, 3 joints for the legs, and then I didn't give a foot joint. And the reason I didn't give it a foot joint, and I went straight to the 3 toes, is what I do is I have this middle I have this middle toe be the leading joint, and so that way whenever I would bend the toes on the rig, it would follow this main toe here. And that's what I do for pretty much all of my rigs. But I don't have a direct foot joint that some people do. However, I am going to have a direct hand joint. So I'm going to have the humerus, I have the forearm, and then I'll have a small part here that directs the hands, and then I'll do the toes. So it's just something I realized I forgot to mention. So, yeah. All right, so now I'm going to start the fingers, previously I went ahead and back and I just fixed this toe because I forgot to add a Plateosaurus's 5th vestigial toe right there, so that's probably good for now. Anyway, the way I do the fingers is different than what I have on the diagrams here. I use the diagrams as a base, but these are kind of, if you think about this, is looking at the top side of your palm, pretty much. This is what this is. But the way I'm going to model them is I'm going to model the fingers using, like, the side. And I'll use this finger as a base. So I guess I'll show you what I'm doing. You have to flip the perspective. And I think this works best with the way fingers curve and, like, just with modeling fingers in general. We're essentially modeling it from the side like how we'd see the claw on the toes right here. The claw is facing the top right here, but I'm going to model it as if it was facing the side. So I'll kind of show you. Should also probably get a reference of Plateosaurus claws. Alright, so perfect. I found a 3D model, but like we're going to model it from this view, essentially. And I also need this so I can see how the claws look. And man, this guy's got some mean claws. Yeah, but just keep that in mind. For these fingers, since they're smaller and I think a little bit for the one over here too. I'll just go ahead and chop off like the back half of this because otherwise the scales are going to be way too abundant. So I'll just do that and then, oops, kind of do the similar to, just do one of these. There you go. It's like nobody knows now. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply the mirror on all the fingers because I think I'm about good. Oh, nope, I'm not going to. I forgot to segment them. It looks like I did a really bad job at segmenting this part. If this ever happens, whenever you're segmenting stuff and you have a bunch of loose parts that you didn't realize you didn't select, go ahead and just select them. These are edges, so I'll just go to edge select up here and select them. And then I'll go ahead and select these floating parts, separate them out, and then the part that they're supposed to be on, I'll go ahead and click both of them, Ctrl J to join, and then they're going to be floating still because they're still two separate parts. So I'm going to go ahead and click A to highlight all. I'll click M, and this is to merge things by distance. So what this will do, this will take the vertices closest to each other, and I'm not talking like these close, I'm talking like there's this that's damn near inside of this one. I'll go ahead and merge by distance, and that'll fix any of those gaps right there. See, now it's all one part. So I'm glad I caught that before I separated it. I have to go back and check. Yeah, it looks like I'm good. This little tiny finger, I didn't even bother giving it joints. This one I gave 2 because of the 2 joints on the finger right here. This one's got 4, 3, and then 2. But yeah. Not really the proudest of how this hand scaling turned out, but honestly, it's fine. It does make it look really rugged though, and I kind of like that idea. But yeah, whatever, it's fine. It'll look good. Alright, I'm very proud with how this musculature came out on this arm. I really, really like that. A really big thing that people that kind of bugs me with people is they don't really look like their limbs are attached. So when I first had this arm out, it was super separated from the body. So I had to kind of pull the body out a little bit to make it overlap a little bit, and then I also pulled this up and into the body. So now it looks a lot more attached, and it looks like, yeah, it looks like it articulates really, really well now. So that's awesome. Anyway, now we're going to do the same thing of just going and attaching it on the side. I guess I'll rotate that a little bit more. So make sure all your jointing you think is good. I'll go ahead and check this one again because I didn't. Very, very good. Very nice. It doesn't bend like that, but awesome. I'm very happy with how this turned out. So highlight all of it. All the mirrors are gone, right? Oh, nope. Glad I checked the claws. Okay. I'll join all of it. Ctrl J. Add modifier. Mirror to the other side. Awesome sauce. I think I'm going to rotate it just a little bit. Like that. There we go. And then apply that mirror. Select everything. Separate by material. And then I'll go ahead and go to the arms. Ctrl A, separate by loose parts. Set all of your origins to the geometry. And then the claws. Shade smooth that real quick. Separate by loose parts. And then add your origin to geometry. And look at that! The base of our model is done. Let's go ahead and look at everything. Yeah, this is an animal. Absolutely. Definitely looks like one. I mean, I think this is an animal. Look at that. Looks a lot like a lizard. It's pretty much what old dinosaurs were. Anyway, now we're going to get on to the patterning, which, if you give me a second. So, I went ahead and made this concept a little bit earlier. Based off the, I don't remember, I think this is the Indonesian blue-tongued skink. I'm pretty sure it's the Indonesian blue-tongued skink. I'm not sure. Anyway, I traced over the reference that we had in here, which was just the skeleton in the background. However, because it varies, I actually would think tracing, like taking a picture of your model and kind of just sketching the patterns over it would be good. Also, or alternatively, you don't need to draw the patterns, and you could kind of just open up a reference and look up like, marine iguana, and going, huh, okay, let me just do that, and then just winging it. It works. Everything works. It doesn't matter. I just like drawing it out. So there's a lot of different colors here. I just made it orange because that's what the skink was, even though this one is blue. But, so now I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is everything you have made right here is in something called a collection. And so what we're going to do, I'll go ahead and name this collection base model, because this is our unpatterned, unsegmented version. And then I'll go ahead, right click, duplicate collection, and then this checkbox, I'll click exclude from base layer, and I'll call this one default patterned. And so now, if I were to just delete the references from here, because I don't need them anymore, and that one too, and if I were to uncheck this one and then go back, we have our base model in case we ever need to refer back to it. And I always recommend doing this. Always put a backup of your base model, because you don't know when it could save you if you mess something up. But now that we have this here, I'll go ahead and import my reference. There we go. Size this up to make sure it matches. I almost got it perfectly. That looks about right. Yeah. Yeah, that works. And then I'll go ahead and move that out there. And so now what we're going to do, I'm going to drag this into the default pattern version. Turn off X-ray mode. This is where we're going to use knife tool a lot more than you're probably going to be comfortable with. And so I'll go ahead and just start with the head. I guess maybe I want to change the pattern. So let's go to orthographic, so it's like this. I'll just start with the underbelly pattern. So I'll go ahead and change the viewport display. I'll use the drop tool. There we go. And then I'll also change it for the viewport one. There we go. Mouth is still the same. I'll go ahead and I guess start with this jaw. It looks like if I go to X-ray mode, there's a little bit of the jaw there. So yeah, I'll just show you how this is done. Basically, you go in, go to face select, and then just go ahead and start cutting along these patterns. And this is the part where topology doesn't really matter. So go ham with n-gons, and I could do whatever I want here, and it would be fine because Roblox is going to triangulate it anyway. The only reason I had you do it for the base model is because it's always good to have a clean base model. But I'll go ahead and just tap along here. Yada, yada, yada. Boom. And then I'll go ahead and select these faces that we just made following along the pattern. And then I'll go ahead and go to material. I figured it out. So you have to add a new material to this part because this part now holds two different materials. Peachy, this one. And then I already selected it using the knife tool here, or the eyedropper tool. And then you have to click assign, so then you get to see it change color. And now that color is assigned to those vertices. And then that'll help when we separate this later by material, easily separated. But yes, so that's how you do it. You knife tool it out like we just did, and then you add a new color here, depending on if it's a new color. And then you would click assign, and now I could just select these colors too, so that's pretty cool. But now I'm just going to go ahead and repeat that. I won't time-lapse it just yet, so I can show you in case I make any mistakes. I'll go ahead and make the same pattern right here. Kind of looks like this is all... I can't tell, is that a different color? That is a different color. Yes, so it's more down here along these lips. It starts going up. I don't know how I could see that, honestly. But yeah, boom. And then go ahead and select it. Another way to easily select this is you can kind of see where you did your patterns right here. And you could use the highlighter tool that I'm using right here. And select it. Make sure I got all the bottom lips there because those kind of attach. And, oh, there we go. I caught something. This didn't translate from the side view, so I'll go ahead and put that. And it looks like everything else did. So go ahead, add new pattern, peachy color, and I'll click assign. And there we go. Yeah, the patterns are starting to come out now. So now we're just going to keep doing this throughout all the colors. And then so I'll go ahead and do this next color, which is up here. I don't even know. I'm going to run out of color names. I don't know what colors are called. But I guess we'll test that. Down there. And then it kind of like... Is that a different color? You're all that. Ah, I see. I don't have to get it perfect. It's just nice to have things that line up. So now I'll go ahead and select this one. I'll try not to select the ones I already did. Patterning is the part that's probably the most... I don't know if it's the most time consuming. It really depends. I kind of did a lot of things going on here with a lot of different colors. But, I mean, it's chill. I think patterning's fine. And then I'll go ahead and add a new color. I'll call this... Oh, this is going to be a new one. What color even is that? It's like a tan. So, I'll go ahead... That's like a tan, right? Is that the same color as going down there? That's not that one. Yeah, it's that one. Okay. Go ahead, I drop that color, also change it for the viewport, or for that one. Oops. And then assign. Okay, yeah, there we go. So it's starting to come out now. And yeah, just repeat this process. And if you already have that color, like if I were to start doing the neck and I were to click add material, remember your materials are stored in here. So don't keep adding a new one based on the different colors. So like if I were to change this right here, I would click add. Don't make a new one. Go ahead and go to the ones you already made and then click assign. And then yeah, there you go. But yeah, now I'll just keep repeating this. So yeah, there we go. Now we have basically the whole head done. And then the reason we're not separating these yet is because we're not done quite yet with the model. We still need to go over the segmenting, but we do the segmenting after we do the patterning. Or at least I found a new way to do the segmenting after the patterning that makes it a lot easier than the previous methods that I did before. And that's why I'm teaching it this way, because this is the way easier method that I'm going through. For the leg right here and things that obscure, I kind of just have to imagine what the skin would look like underneath it. And so I'm kind of just going to keeping this lighter underbelly pattern underneath here. Something like that. I just realized a very painful mistake. I don't know how long I was paused, and so I don't know where I was at this last footage. It might have been the body. Either way, I'll just recap what I went through. Body's done. I started patterning the arms. I think I paused right before I started. But the point I was trying to make with these is that I try not to give the feet and arms too much patterning just because it's a pain to do. But what I do is I don't I follow the reference. I try to follow the reference over here and I try to cut it out. But honestly, because I only drew the side of this, it's how I do the front and how I do the back and all that stuff isn't really going to matter too much. So I kind of just, when you make the arms and the legs patterns, map it out like how it is on the side, and then just have fun with how the rest of it looks. That's what I kind of just did here. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that's probably gonna work. And I realize that color is probably not gonna match, but you know what? It's fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Um, yeah. Okay, now I'll continue working on the rest of this, and hopefully you'll see. All right, now I don't remember if I went over this with the arms because I think I stopped recording. But now I'm gonna just duplicate these to the other side or mirror these to the other side. So I'll go ahead and just select the legs that I don't need. Instead of joining these all together, I'm just gonna go ahead and mirror these each individually. So I'll mirror that one across, and I'll go ahead and apply it. Mirror this one across, apply, and then the last one. Then go ahead and each of these highlight and separate by loose parts. Loose parts. Boom. And now we basically have the entire thing patterned. So we'll go ahead and get to segmenting. Since we're already on the... Ooh, what is that? Uh-oh. What? That's weird. What are you? I'm gonna delete you. Okay. Well, ignoring this weird thing, we're gonna go ahead and separate the leg patterns for now, or at least I'll show you how to. I might not do it now just for organizational stuff. But now, how we would separate these, we would highlight everything, click P to separate, and then separate by material. And bam, every single material separated now. So when we import this to Roblox, we can go ahead and color it and stuff like that. Not going to do that yet. I think I'll show you how I segment. So first, what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and separate the neck and the tail from these. So I'll go to the face select, and this is the neck. This is going to be the start of the neck right here. So I'll go ahead and highlight this whole thing. Make sure I have everything, and make sure this is a very clear segment. Yes, it is. And then I'll separate this by selection. And then I'll go ahead and do the same for the tail, which I will separate it right here. And then highlight the rest of that. Make sure I have everything. Is that a clean segment? Nope. Now it is. And so I'll go ahead and separate this by selection. And so what you do when it comes to segmenting, and you know, I'll segment the body and the neck into its individual things, is now I'll go ahead and select this edge, and then I'll extrude it the same as we did. Oh, make sure everything's selected. That didn't auto select everything. I'll extrude it, and then I'll shrink it down, and I'm not going to have active element. I'll select bounding box. And these are going to be our body segments, and they are supposed to be overlapping. Make sure they're pinched off like that. I'm usually pretty good at the side-to-side motion, but I've been messing up my up and down lately. But yeah, we don't want to go too far, because every time we rotate, these are going to clip through each other, but then we don't want to go too short, because then it's just going to split down the middle. So I usually go just a little bit further, something like that. And you want to make sure it's pinched off, because you want to imagine this tail rotating. This is going to want to smoothly go in between. So it looks like something like that's going to be good. And then I'll go ahead and do this to the other end. Make sure everything is selected. Extrude. Whoa. Not you. Okay, yeah, that's it. Extrude, scale, and then the same sort of thing over here. I might pinch this neck part off a little more, just because I'm thinking of how I want to move the neck. And then I'll separate that. And then now it's segmented. Uh-oh. I thought I selected everything. I'll go ahead and separate that, and then join that to the tail. And then, oh, I don't want to do by loose parts. I'll select that and then merge by distance. Okay, now that's connected again. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and do the neck. The neck, because of how it blends into the body, I think I'm just gonna, extrude and rotate and not pinch it off as hard. I think that's going to be about good, because if we want to imagine this moving, let me try something. If I add an empty, and then I put this where I want the neck to rotate, and I select this, and then select this to active origin. Okay, yeah, okay. Wow, that's awful. Yeah. Um, hmm. I think I'm going to go ahead and make this less sharp. So I think I'll just go ahead and make it a little bit more like that with the sculpt tool. So that way, okay, that's a little better. That's a lot better. Yeah. Maybe if I enable that. Yeah. No, just like tweaks like that. Go ahead. This is really good right here. It's usually the neck that gives you trouble, and it's because of how this joints off. But this is pretty good. This is going to be beautiful, and obviously you can't rotate it too much. But yeah. So what's the ideal overlap? Something about like that, and it's going to depend on what you're making, obviously. But yeah. And then usually I give my necks minimum three for shorter neck things, but this guy's got a longer neck, so I'll do maybe 4 or 5 neck segments. The body I'll do 3, and then the tail I usually do about 8 and stuff like that. Um, which one do I'll do the tail first. And you always want to follow those little base segments those segments that your base model has, so like these vertical lines that were started um, before we started patterning this. For the bodies, usually what we do, or what I do, um, there's going to be 3 segments. I've been doing 2, but recently I've been giving me a small third one. You have the waist, which basically acts as one. This entire hip is a part of one system. And then the big chest is also like, you have the rib cage here. It's not going to be moving much. So I'll probably have these two, a small middle one, and then the chest. And wow, it looks like I already selected it. All right, I think I'm about happy with my jointing, so I'm a little disappointed in this neck, but it's whatever. Um, I've left the mirror modifiers on for the body just because any edits I want to do is that I can go back and quickly do it. I'm really proud of how these legs turned out. I really like that. So now what we're gonna do, I think I could do it if I select all. I'm gonna go ahead and try that. We'll click A to select everything. Not that though. And then go to Modeling tab. And so we see our entire topology. Select A, click P, and then separate by material. I want to see if that worked. That did work. Okay. So now we have every single pattern separated by material for when we need to import it. I have an eye that I could probably just link the file in the description. I don't like using spheres and then copy pasting them and then giving a pupil. I like doing something. I built an eye mesh that functions like an actual eye. So yeah, I'll probably just let that out. But yeah, so now we have our completed model. Now I'm gonna go ahead. Give me a second. Okay, got it. Yeah, there's this really awesome script that can set the God, this thing's awesome. Hold on, I'm gonna go ahead and change the background to like. Look at that, man. We just recorded this entire thing, and it only took me like 4 days to do it, but whatever. I'm gonna highlight this whole thing, and I have this script I'll paste in the description, or oh wait, oops, new, paste, and this will assign the name based on the color, and I'll go ahead and run that. That didn't work. Hold on. I got it. It was a different script. It's this. You select everything, and I don't know if it's because I have it selected in mode, but it doesn't hurt to try both. But yeah, paste the script, and then it names every single material based on the color that it's on. So this will really help when it comes to importing. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and select this, or I'll just click A anyway, and then delete, unselect the photo. I'm going to go ahead and click Export FBX, and I'll just save this to, I don't know, my downloads. I'll limit this to selected objects. The scale, I'll just put as 0.5 because Blender stuff port's really big. And then go ahead and export. And then we'll go ahead and open up Roblox Studio. So now I have beautiful Roblox Studio open, the greatest platform to make video games of all time. There's Dinosaurs. I'm going to go ahead up here and click Import in the Home tab. And then I'll go ahead and find my model. And then it should be good. If there is any situation where something doesn't show up or doesn't look good, and I probably should have done this beforehand, in Blender, if you go down to the viewport overlays, drop down and click face orientation, it'll highlight anything that's not properly, I guess if it's inverted is the correct thing. It looks like the claws are, which is unfortunate because I just clicked this. And if I look, yeah, you can see the claws are inverted, which that's not the biggest issue, but I'll go ahead and fix this in Blender real quick. And the easiest way we can do that is highlight these. We'll go into Modeling tab, select everything, and then hold Alt-N, and then recalculate outside. And then there we go. That'll basically recalculate which side is facing outside and which side is facing inside. So I guess I'll go ahead and re-export and re-import real quick. There we go. Now our claws are looking good. And it looks like just about everything else is looking good as well. The mouth's not messed up. And yeah, so we'll go ahead. I'll go to File Geometry, Invert Negative Faces. If anything does happen, that should do anything. If I select this to centimeter, it's going to be too small. So we'll go ahead and do stud. Click Import. Wait for it to import. It usually doesn't take that long. Usually it will take me like 10 seconds maximum because it's trying to get it into Studio's geometry. Man, it's been a long, I don't know how long. I'm glad this is done though. This has actually forced me to work consecutively on this model. And yeah, I don't know if I've been able to do that in a while, mainly just because, you know, I got other stuff to do. Man, nothing hits like water on a hot summer day. And I'd really wish for this thing to import right now. Is it in? Yep, there he is. Wonderful. He's massive. And you can kind of see how you can see that topology, but that's going to be fixed when we scale it down and we apply any texture. So I have a scale bar here that I probably need to redo, but I'll go ahead and just mess around with this. Plateosaurus is actually, that's probably decent. That's probably a good size. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and transfer our colors. And the way I do that, I'll just go ahead and ungroup this. Or actually, I guess I don't need to. I'll go in the model. I'll find everything labeled black. I'll highlight all of it, holding shift and clicking that. I'll go into, that's not Blender. Go into here, go on the arm, or at least something that's black. Go to base color, copy the hex code, or at least I don't need the FF, I'm pretty sure. Paste it, boom. And then now we're just going to do that for every single color. So this peachy color. So it looks like I have everything now, and I'll go ahead and just select this whole thing. Hold Alt and just select everything, and I'll basically just make it slate, because slate works the best. Wow, that looks awesome. And you can see these details kind of shine through. It's a little hard in the static lighting, but yeah, this hip pops out really nice. I guess you can't really see some of the details. It's better in yeah, you can kind of see the lats pop out right there. It'll help in motion, and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll go ahead and just change the materials on this stuff. So the mouth will be, I usually do marble, I think. I'm pretty sure I use marble. What did I do for you? It's marble. I'll do glass for the teeth. So that way it's got nice and shiny. Set that little off-white color. The tongue as well. I think I forgot to separate the tongue from the mouth, which is an issue. Yeah, I did. So I might have to re-import that. And it happens, so... Loose parts? Yeah, there we go. Shoot. What I do when it comes to re-imported parts, like now I have this tongue, I'll take the parts, and then I'll take a familiar piece like this jaw, and then I'll export, and then I'll do like the same file name, and then put parts, and make sure it's only on selected objects. I'll export this, and then, as long as I haven't changed the scaling, I'll click import, import the parts, change all this. Yeah, it's good. It should import pretty instantly. Yeah. And then I'll take this, I'll make sure the pivot is reset on the jaw, which actually that's going to suck if I do, because that's going to have the jaw's orientation. We'll see if I can get away with it. Hello? Where did it go? So this is a model. We'll set the primary part to the jaw, and then we'll copy this jaw's C-frame position, put it here, and then just size it down. And I don't know, oh wait, no, not C-frame position, pivot position, I think. Oh, it's going to the C-frame position, even though it should be going to the pivot position, which is why you would have to reset the pivot. I'll duplicate this and then reset the pivot on it. Pivot, reset. Copy C-frame. I'll do the same here. Pivot, reset. And then there we go. And look at that, it's perfect. And then I'll move this down one. Where's the off pivot one? Oh, and it's auto-saving. Thank you, Roblox. Ah! Release me! Okay. I'll go ahead and delete that. Copy the mouth color. And then set it to marble. Move it up one. Did I delete it? Oh, no, I need to delete it first. There we go. Good as new. And now he's got a mobile tongue. Okay. I think that's... Oh, I need to set the claws. The claws, I usually just do glacier texture because it gives it that rough, or that shiny claw, but still makes it a little varied and doesn't make it too shiny. I think that's about it for the textures. If anything, I'll use concrete for this, which it might bring out those details a lot more. So, like, if I select concrete... Yeah. But he looks really smooth now. I don't know. I'll figure out which one I do. But, yeah. And then for the eyes, I have an eye mesh, which I'll go ahead and also link. This mesh is life-saving. And this will help us make our eyelids, too. So, I'll go ahead... I'll just make these glass for a second. The eye color I liked doing for this guy was like a red, an orangish red, something like that. And then I'll take that same color, I'll copy it to the outside one, and then I always desaturate it and then make it darker because that's kind of just how bird eyes work. And then I'll go ahead and put this into position. I'll change the amount of movement I want to do. And then I'll just put this to where it should be over here. Yeah, now I should delete this. Now, give me that eye back out. What a wonderful creature. And its eyes are messing up on the... Yeah, what happens if I set the camera? Yeah, it's still fucked up. How do I get rid of that stupid glass? Oh, I guess I'd have to set the transparency. Let me do that. So with these eyes, if it does that weird texture mess up, I usually just take whatever the transparent parts are, which seem to be these two, and I'll put the transparency up a little bit more, so like maybe 0.7. It's a lot better, yeah. What did I do it for Chilantosaurus? Underneath your eyelids. Man, I wish I could see your eyelids at least. Or your eyes. Oh, they're 0. I don't know why the eyelids are 0. That shouldn't be like that. I'd have to fix that. Anyway, whatever. I'm kind of just talking to myself at this point. I'll go ahead and ungroup this, and I'll keep those eyes together. But now I'm going to add the humanoid root part, which we'll set up for rigging. So I'll go ahead and take this and group this back again. I only say that because the eye's in there now. I'll go ahead and copy the position, paste it here, and then I always make the humanoid root part stretch to just before the front of the chest and just like to the back of the legs before the tail, and then just before the top and the bottom. You want it to overlap, but not too much. So something like that's usually good. And then, yeah. Well, I also like to add a fake torso for rigging. So I'll put this as 0.5 transparency. Set it to red. This fake torso, I usually put for... Actually, I guess I'll just leave that for the rigging video. Humanoid root part's all we need. Now that we have something in the center, I'll go ahead and duplicate this. I'm going to uncheck this rotate or this translation scale factor, flatten this, and then push this out on one side. And the reason I want that is because it'll be bisecting the whole model. And then now I can use this as a base. If we were to put this at, here's an idea. I'll go ahead, look inside this model, grab the eyes, and then I'll use Stravant's Model Reflect tool, or plugin that we find on Roblox. Make sure the model's selected, and then reflect. And then now the eye is directly on the other side, and bada bing, bada boom, that's a complete model. I'll set that transparent, ungroup, then regroup this so I can have the humanoid root part. Set the primary part to the humanoid root part. And this will pave way into our rigging video. But yeah, this is how I make my dinosaurs. That's the entire process. And this took me, I think, I want to say 6, 7, 8 hours to do. You know, going from literally the very, very beginning to the very, very end. But I recorded this in a span of about 4 days. So if that puts into perspective anything, or helps you plan out your times and stuff, and I don't know. I hope this video was of some use, and I hope that there's a great generation that I could pass this to that will replace me. But yeah, there we go. That's our Plateosaurus, and I hope all of you have a beautiful day, or evening, or morning, wherever you are, or if you turn this on to go to sleep, because I've had people do that to me before. Yeah. I'll start the rigging video probably tomorrow, and I don't know if I'll release this all as once or how that go. Whatever, that's for me to hear and for you to not pay attention to, really. Peace out.